Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Well, welcome back to this second series of the Israel issue, in which we're thinking about the sap which was produced by the roots which God uniquely gave to Israel to enable them to be the people he'd called them to be and to do what he had called them to do. And the constituent we're thinking about today, the second constituent, is the experience of encountering his glory, the glory of the one true God, the God of Israel. Let's just remind ourselves of that gifts list that Paul describes in Romans 9 verse 4, which was so consequential for the people of Israel, even when they were not in good relationship with him, that it caused Mark Twain to comment, "All things are mortal, but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains." What is the secret of his immortality? And the answer, of course, to Mark Twain's question is that the gifts that God gave to Israel were irrevocable despite whatever they may do or whatever they may become. But what we're also thinking about in this series is how Yeshua redeemed those gifts from what they become in the hands of Israel. So that for those of Israel who would receive him as their Messiah, he would give back those gifts to them in their redeemed form to enable them to then fulfill the calling that God had first given to Israel. But what we're also thinking about is the way Yeshua enabled we who are grafted into Israel to also receive what comes from those gifts that are in the roots of Israel to enable us to produce fruit in our lives which could only come from that gifting that God has placed in the roots of Israel. Now, last time we thought about the adoption as sons which God had given to Israel and which can mean for us that we can live as heirs of God who can dwell and live in the wealth of his character and his being. And today we're thinking about the gift of encountering his glory, the glory of the one true God, the glory of the God of Israel, that he first gifted to Israel, even though they didn't deserve it, but in order that they might have revelation, that they saw and they felt of his being and his awesome character, that they would have revelation of him like no other nation had. And this they most continuously experienced in the cloud that went ahead of them by day and the pillar of fire by night that led them through those 40 years of their wilderness journey. But then most awesomely seeing it descend in what looked like a consuming fire on top of Mount Sinai, out of which God spoke to Moses during 40 days and 40 nights, causing even the mountain itself to tremble. But then most directly when it filled the temple after Solomon's prayer of dedication, when fire fell from heaven consuming the burnt offerings and sacrifices to the extent that the priests were prevented from entering the temple. But perhaps most shockingly of all was when it descended to bring judgment at the rebellion led by Korah, when the ground opened up and all of his men along with all their households and their possessions were swallowed up. But then most personally of all, through Moses' individual encounters with God, beginning with the burning bush experience through which Moses heard God say to him, "I am who I am. Now, in each of those different experiences of encountering his glory, God gave Israel the opportunity to understand who he had really called them to be, and indeed what he had called them to do. But even more than this, he was giving them revelation of who he was and is and always will be in his character and in his being as the one true God, the God of Israel. But despite this unique privilege of having revelation of him like no other nation, Israel still did not live up to their calling. Israel did not produce the fruit of righteousness that God was looking for. And so when God permitted the Israelites to face defeat by the Philistines and the Ark of the Covenant with all that it symbolized to be captured and taken away, it was said of Israel that the glory has departed from Israel. Indeed, through Hosea, the Lord later added, the more the priests increased, the more they sinned against me. They exchanged their glory for something disgraceful. So God sent Yeshua to be the Messiah of the people of Israel, to be their great high priest who would turn around, who would reverse that terrible exchange made by the priests of Israel, that they might show forth the fruit of righteousness in the way they lived and that the world may see. And of course, this was what the elderly prophet Simeon recognized when he held the infant Yeshua in his arms and said, "For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the sight of all people, a light for revelation to the nations and glory to your people Israel." Now, through the death and then the resurrection of Yeshua, he fulfilled that prophecy by bringing many sons to glory, which culminates in eternity, but of course begins here on earth as his Father, our Abba Father, answered that prayer that he prayed on the night before he died, saying, "Father, I want those you have given me to be with me where I am, and to see my glory, the glory you have given me, for you have loved me before the foundation of the world." And through our Father's answer to this prayer of Yeshua, we can then really understand what Paul was speaking about when he spoke of this glorious mystery regarding the Gentiles, which is Messiah in you, the hope of glory. As a result of which we all, with unveiled faces, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory. Now, isn't that the most astounding thought, that in the midst of our lives, where we live, with everything that goes on for us, we can still be transformed from glory to glory? And it's possible because as Gentiles, we have been grafted through Yeshua into Israel and are then enabled to draw on that sap which comes from those unique roots of Israel, into which God gifted the ability to encounter his glory, the glory of the one true God, the God of Israel. And that's why we may have genuine expectant faith that glory will be in the community of believers and in Messiah Yeshua throughout all generations, and especially in one like ours, so close to the end times. And that's what the Israel issue is all about. If you'd like to do a bit of study on what we've been thinking about in this episode, then do go to our website, www.letthelion.roar.com. Go to the Israel Issue tab. There you'll find the study and all the previous episodes you might now like to refer back to. If you've been watching for the first time, do hit that subscribe button so that you'll get it direct in the future. Do tell others about this most vital message regarding Israel. I look forward to being back with you in the near future with another episode of the Israel Issue.